taking the time out and coming to join us today at the Ratchet and Clank 10th anniversary panel. My name is James Stevenson, and I am the community lead at Insomniac Games, and I have a great panel of people that have been working on Ratchet and Clank for a long time right here. So to start us off, I want to introduce the panel, and I'm going to go to the very end to the elder of the group. Only in terms of how long he's been working on Ratchet and at Insomniac. John Fiorito is our Chief Operating Officer at Insomniac Games and has been with Insomniac since Spyro. Wow. Spyro the Dragon? Sitting next to him is Chad Discern, who is our Studio Director at Insomniac North Carolina and has also been with the company since ye olden days. Right in the middle of our group is the wonderfully bearded Brian Algeier. You may know Brian from other PAX panels. He was the creative director on all of the Ratchet and Clank Future series and Saga, the PS3 era. And he's also creative directing a new game you're going to be hearing about soon from Insomniac, so keep an eye on fusegame.com. To his immediate left, my right, is our senior writer, TJ Fixman, who has written all the Ratchet games since Tools of Destruction, and the comics and all sorts of other good stuff as well. And last but certainly not least, Sean McCabe, our production director at Insomniac North Carolina, who has been programming Ratchet since the PS2 days and now heads up all the production of them in North Carolina and is hard at work on Full Frontal Assault. This is the 10th anniversary of Ratchet and Clank. I think, in my personal opinion, PlayStation's greatest hero. And I wanted to take you guys back to 10 years ago and show you a video that I believe was an internal pitch video or first teaser video for Ratchet and Clank. You probably haven't seen this in a long time. I think John and Chad are probably the most qualified to talk about this, but going way back, I mean, what is it like watching that video now from, you know, the original early days of Ratchet?
Well, I mean, it looks like something we did when we were children or something. It's, you know, you halfway want to apologize for it. It's just, you know, it looks so dated to us now, of course.
I think we pretty much were children back then.
Well, I guess so, yeah.
So John, one of the things I wanted to kind of show, and we have a few slides here, we have a lot of art, some of it you probably have never seen, some of it we've posted recently kind of in the celebration leading up to the HD collection release, which came out earlier this week. Have you all grabbed that yet? So I wanted to kind of go back and look at some of the original early Ratchet designs and also talk about, you know, the very formation of Ratchet itself. And if you know the history, we were working on a project called Girl with a Stick, and we decided to shelve that project and start on something new. And I want to let John talk a little bit about that, and can you talk about the time from when we shelved Girl with a Stick to how we kind of got into the original designs for Ratchet, the idea for Ratchet, and through that point?
Yeah, it was a very, very quick time period. We'd spent maybe a year working on an idea for a game that just didn't work out, and Sony gave us a couple months to put together a new idea. They really wanted to work with us, but they needed to see something. And there was a lot of pressure, but also a lot of creativity. The whole studio was just trying to figure out what to do. And when these images by our concept artist, Dave Gurton, appeared, it all started to click. And we had this idea for, this crazy alien with a lot of gadgets and weapons and this sci-fi universe. And it sort of energized the whole studio. And we quickly put together a demo that Sony really liked, and then we just started to go. And then it was all a blur for the 9.5 more years.
I don't know if we've shown this one. This is actually the color test when you were trying to figure out what color Ratchet should be. There's a pretty good story about that, isn't there? That I don't know if you or Chad can speak to, but back in the day, like, Ratchet wasn't always going to be yellow.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously we tried a little bit of everything in those images, and I actually don't remember at this point what led to Dave and the rest of us selecting Ratchet's final palette. I do remember that one of our Japanese producers suggested putting stripes on the ears. And at the time we thought, oh, you're crazy. That's
Ted in his keynote said, "Over my dead body," is right. What he said in the meeting.
Yeah, we just couldn't imagine it. But of course now, would look wrong without it. And that turned out to be a really good suggestion that was dead on. So we went through quite a bit trying to figure out what was going to, look familiar enough to kind of invite you into the character, but not so familiar that, Ratchet looked not like an alien and into human.
Yeah, it's interesting there's a purple one there because we had spent 3 games doing Spyro, and that was probably the last thing we wanted to do is another purple hero.
So look at Clank a little bit, and I think the idea for Clank actually was a little different originally. Can you guys talk about the original idea as Clank was sort of a weapon or a gadget, all the gadgets in and of himself?
Yeah, Clank's original idea was he was actually going to be multiple robots that clung all over Ratchet to power his weapons, to power his backpack, and a third one was for his gadgets. And it just was too confusing for a player to parse that on screen, so he kind of refined himself into one and became the backpack addition to Ratchet.
And this was the final, I believe, kind of sketch of Ratchet, the first final sketch of Ratchet that we had. So he's come a long way since then even, but that was kind of where the hero was born. We have a lot of other kind of crazy slides and some of the original artwork I wanted to show. And actually, it's also fun. If you look at some of these, you can tell that you guys did this on paper, right?
Yeah, Dave Gerton always just worked on, old-fashioned paper with either graphite or grayscale markers. And it still goes back to that every once in a while. Just because
if you look at the very top of this, I think this is you, John, right?
Yeah, I was doing the backgrounds.
So if you look at the top, you can actually see the 3 holes in the paper when they scan this in.
Yeah, the funny thing about this era, we were so busy that I switched from working in pencil to working in pen just so I couldn't erase and I could go faster. It wasn't about like using ink or anything. It was just what's faster.
And that's one thing I kind of think is interesting to talk about too. And here's one of the designs and level maps for I think one of the first levels we built for Sony.
That's Blackwater City from Ratchet and Clank 1, if anybody remembers.
It's a nice looking map.
How fast were you guys working? Because we're talking about, obviously Ratchet and Clank had a little more time because it was a new IP and a lot of new things, but when you think about that PS2 era, there was a game every single year. So what was that like to create Ratchet and Clank, Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, and Deadlocked, and release them essentially within a 3-year span from the first one to the last one? Those were all on shelves.
Yeah, it was a fast pace, there's no doubt, and we just kind of went with things. At some point, the environment just had to be ready, the design just had to be ready, and we were just going to make it all work and come together at the end whenever we had to, and that's what we did all those years. Like, these things came together pretty late in the cycle, but we managed to pull them together.
Yeah, maybe Brian, you want to talk?
Well, yeah,
designer?
Essentially, we'd be at the very tail end of Ratchet 1, and it would just be this huge crunch period. We'd be working weekends, just 80, 90-hour weeks. And then Ted Price was like, we got to start planning Ratchet and Clank 2 now. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Are you crazy? We don't even know if the first one's going to be a success. But it was a really exciting time, and it really just, felt like you were always running constantly just to get the next thing done.
So a couple more images from that, and then I kind of want to segue a little bit because, we had 4 really successful games on the PS2. We did a lot of different things, added multiplayer and Up Your Arsenal, kind of had the more co-op focused Deadlocked and multiplayer there. But then we moved on to the Future Saga on PlayStation 3, and I assume everyone in this room has played the 3 Future games? So Brian, talk about that moment. You know, Deadlocked is ongoing, we're working on Resistance. When you found out you were going to be working on and kind of creating a Ratchet game for PS3, tell me about those early conversations and kind of the goals and things you guys talked about back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially we had wrapped up Up Your Arsenal, and that was back in 2004, and we thought, well, we want to do something different. We're going to try out this thing called Deadlocked and make it more serious, more focused just on combat, and we kind of got away from what originally inspired Ratchet and Clank from the beginning, which was these very colorful, bold environments with lots of fun, gadgets and weaponry, and we had a lot of that in Deadlock, but we felt like we kind of veered off course a little bit. So we wanted to get back to what made Ratchet really special and what made him unique. And Brian Hastings, who originally came up with Ratchet, and essentially had the log line of it's an alien that travels from planet to planet collecting weapons and gadgets. We wanted to bring a lot of that spirit back. And we thought, you know what, we really need to get Metropolis, the one level that was kind of like the signature level of the first game and of the series, and see what that would look like with next gen on the PlayStation 3. And we were super excited about that, and that just really energized the whole team. And it was a bit of a challenge for us because we had to rewrite and reprogram and redo everything all over again. We had to rebuild a whole new Ratchet and put fur on him, and so it was certainly a lot of work, but we were just so excited about what this new Metropolis could look like. And so within like a couple months, I think we threw together this video, and we did all the tricks we could to make it look like this full-on city. And I think showed it at GDC. And we weren't quite sure what the reception would be. We didn't know if people were just kind of tired of Ratchet and they were ready to move on to something else. And when it was presented there, the whole room just, there was it was like a big applause, and everyone was super excited about it. And so that momentum just kept going, and we just kept getting more excited about creating this, going back to what Ratchet and Clank was all about. And I think the one key thing for us was we really wanted to inject a lot of heart into who Ratchet was and create a more meaningful story. It's more personal for him. And so that's when we brought TJ on board to help craft the story and really develop what Ratchet was about and more of his history.
So you can see a couple of we definitely tweaked Ratchet's design a little bit, and we had to bring him into sort of next gen, back when next gen was PS3. And there's a lot of technology too, and getting the fur looking really good. But I kind of want to go off of your comment, Brian, about the story. And TJ, when you set out with Tools of Destruction, were you thinking you were going to write this arc of kind of Ratchet history, finding out more about his history, or you just thinking it was going to be one game? Like, tell me about the beginnings of that story and laying the foundation for the future saga.
Sure. Well, I knew from the time that I was brought on that we wanted to tell a story that was too big for just one game and something that would continue for a couple games. So, me and Brian Hastings and Brian sat down and we talked about, again, focusing on Ratchet's history and focusing on maybe like his relationship with Clank, where it's going to take him into the future. And we just decided to take the entire universe that we had already explored in previous games and tie it all together with one mythology and just set Ratchet on his way. So that once we came up with that sort of core concept and decided that we wanted to have him sort of look for what happened to the other Lombaxes, we started bringing in other factions, and we said, oh, well, it would be fun to bring in like space pirates, and it would be fun to find an enemy like the Kragmites who the Lombaxes fought years ago. So we just started really like digging into mythology and seeing how that can resonate in future games.
So I'm showing a couple slides here. We have Captain Slag, one of the original designs. This actually, I don't think we've ever shown before. This is the original exploration for Tachyon and all the different versions that he went through. And obviously, you can see the genesis and some of the ideas of where he ended up. But this is very, I mean, he was sort of the Napoleonistic character, obviously, size too.
Right.
I can kind of add to that. I mean, originally, he was supposed to be a small Kragmite inside a giant robotic body. And so throughout the first third of the game, you were going to see this big, tall, menacing guy with this big robotic suit. And then at one point, you're going to see the suit open up and this little Kragmite kind of crawling out with the steps unfolding. But we tried to make him look like a exciting and fun and interesting villain, and it just never seemed to work. We just never really resonated with us. And I remember Dave Gerton just finally saying, hey, you know, I'm abandoning this whole guy in a robotic suit idea, and what if we make it a robotic throne? And so that's where he came up with the big throne with the walking legs and everything. And it turned out that was just a much better read and a very distinct looking character.
Made for a fun boss battle too.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I don't know if you guys in the room really want to know about this, but I get this questions a lot about Ratchet's girlfriend. And so here's some images of Talon. Sean laughs. Because it's true, right? I mean, and when we have Full Frontal Assault, we'll talk about that more in a bit, but like we specifically have Talon as one of the skins you can play in multiplayer because people love Talon. And TJ, you brought her back in the comic series and everyone flipped out. Right. But can you talk a little bit about Ratchet's love life and why that's so interesting to people?
I know it's dangerous territory because, like, I mean, everyone is very, you know, obviously invested in Ratchet's love life and his friends. But I think that there's a line that we, of course, don't want to cross. I think it's okay to sort of imply that he's got feelings for somebody, but we never want to go any further than that. So I think it's safe to say that Talon's his girlfriend, and that's
so Talon is his girlfriend. It's confirmed.
Talon is his girlfriend.
So yeah. Ratchet does have a girlfriend.
And Angela's a Lombax.
And Angela's a Lombax. There it is. That's super hyper nerdy. As you kind of were going through, I mean, we got to Quest for Booty, and you did Crack in Time. Like, how did you feel? That saga, how do you feel like that saga wrapped up? Because I know we sort of wrapped the future saga with a little bit of a bow. The universe is still wide open. Ratchet and Clank still have many adventures to go, but that storyline sort of concluded. How did you feel finishing A Crack in Time and feeling like that story kind of completed the arc that you had set out with on Tools of Destruction?
I think both me and Brian were very, very happy with the way that it turned out because we set off to basically show Ratchet something about his past, and we were able to do that. We were able to introduce another Lombax, Alistair Azimuth, and people seem to really dig him. And Azimuth was a lot of fun for us as a character because he was sort of the funhouse mirror of who Ratchet is, and he was who like Ratchet could have become if he didn't have a Clank. So I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't played that particular game. But Azimuth is just a far, I think, deeper character than we had been able to do in previous games, and I was very happy with the way that we were sort of able to bring that all to a head. And we made sure to leave. Like, we didn't want to answer every single thing. Like, we didn't want to go into the details about, like, what happened specifically to Ratchet's dad. I know what I think happened, but I think that we want to leave some carrots dangling out there for either, you know, future adventures or just for people to discuss.
Brian, how did you, I mean, I want to, like, get your take on this, too. Like, you know, you spent a lot of time working on that future saga, and how did you feel kind of wrapping your involvement up on those games?
It was I know there's a sense of closure there to some degree for me because I knew I was going to move on to another project after that, and I'd worked on 7 Ratchet games, and I was kind of ready to get a little bit of distance from Ratchet and Clank. And so, you know, at the time we were never quite sure what is our last Ratchet and Clank game. You know, sometimes we'll start one, it's like, well, I guess if this one sells, we might make another one, and if people really want to play more of them, then we'll keep doing it. But you never quite know. So for me, I knew that was kind of the last one I was going to work on, and who knows, I may work on another one again. But yeah, I think that just kind of wrapping up and really just, you know, actually I don't want to give any spoilers away, but you know, essentially leaving it on the note of what people love so much about the 2 characters and ending it on a note where we know that they're going to be happy. That's all I'll say.
So that kind of moves me on to the future adventures after the future saga. Chad and Sean are both from our North Carolina studio, but both worked in Burbank for a long time, as did many of the people in the North Carolina studio who are like, you know, original Ratchet and Clank gangsters. And you guys, well, something like that. I'm so white, it's unbelievable. So guys, talk to me about starting the North Carolina studio and, you know, getting to go play and kind of have your own Ratchet and Clank adventure.
Sure, well, we started in 2008 with just a handful of people from the Burbank team. And we started another studio because we just wanted to make more games. I mean, it's really simple. But we didn't want to grow the team in Burbank past what was a really great size where everybody could still communicate and everybody still knew what was going on with the games. So when we started out making another Ratchet and Clank adventure, you know, we knew we wanted to try something a little different. We had a lot of people who had worked on 7 of the games in a row. And it was time for us to shake things up for ourselves so that we didn't get too complacent and too comfortable and start repeating ourselves and kind of doing the same things. So, Sean, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, I mean, some of the earliest discussions we had about what became All for One was doing a co-op game, and in particular, the fact that we'd never really done a Ratchet and Clank game. And by that, I mean a game that you could play Ratchet and Clank at the same time, cooperatively. I mean, that is like something that people have wanted to do for a really long time. You kind of got to do that in Deadlock, but the story wasn't built around it. Like, those of you that played Deadlock remember in co-op you could play as Ratchet and Alpha Clank. And from that, I mean, and I swear, like, I just accused Brian of this earlier. Like, it was totally Brian. I remember he said, well, you know, you could totally, like, put Captain Quark in that mix. And then, you know, I think like Chad said, you know, we could actually bring back Nefarious and do a 4-player game. And that, so the evolution, you know, that of the series there was really trying to take this thing that was something that you played by yourself and then bringing it to a larger group.
So, I mean, I think that's one of those games, too, where it was very different, but at the same time, like, I've been really amazed by the amount of families and, you know, have written in or called us or tweeted us about playing this game with their, you know, being able to bring it and have the whole family actually play it together, and that's been something that's kind of blown me away. Have you guys seen some of that same response?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the same thing. It's been gratifying to hear from people who love to, you know, get on the couch with their families and friends and play through, and, you know, we feel like we were creating something that was maybe filling a gap. There aren't a whole lot of kind of narrative-driven adventures where you can play through the whole thing from start to finish, co-op, and really get a story as you play, and that's where we kind of fit in with this.
So before I move on to the next Ratchet and Clank game, I did want to call this piece out in particular. This is by David Gerton, and I think it's one of the best pieces he's ever done. It also won the Into the Pixel competition that they do for video game concept art every year, and so it was one of the winners a couple of years ago, I think, when we submitted it, and it's really absolutely just stunning and one of my favorite pieces of Ratchet concept art. So I wanted to give Dave some credit there, and he's done a lot of the images you've seen were Dave Gerton pieces along the way, and I think his style has definitely helped shape Ratchet and Clank. Him and Greg Baldwin especially have helped kind of shape and drive the direction of Ratchet's artwork. Next, so we are working on another Ratchet and Clank game so the 10th anniversary. You know, we started out the 10th anniversary looking at it as a thing like, well, we knew we'd wanted to do an HD collection, and that has come out with the help of Sony and Idle Minds, and that was actually the most requested HD collection, and it's been selling super well. Thank you guys for that. We're really excited about the response, and but we wanted to make our own game for this 10th anniversary too, and we're going to start off by showing you the trailer for Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault, and then we're going to show you a brand new single-player gameplay demo that you haven't seen before. So, and Sean's going to narrate that. But first, the trailer with the very funny words of Mr. TJ Fixman.
Are you ready for the longest day of your pathetic life?
For years, the galaxy has been protected by an uncrackable network of planetary defense centers. Engineered by 7 of the greatest minds in the universe, and one that was just kind of so-so. The network prevented evil from flooding the galaxy. But now, a familiar face from Ratchet and Clank's past is about to bring the entire system crashing down.
Was it me?
The galaxy's greatest heroes will now have to stop their most dangerous adversary yet. A villain so deceitful, so cunning, so terrifyingly evil. Insomniac Games had to hire someone whose every word drips with gravitas to talk about it. With cross-play support. Explore the battlefield. Defend your base. Annihilate your enemies. Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault. Coming soon.
So before I ask about that, a couple things. As you did see, it's coming also to PlayStation Vita, which we're very excited about. You can play against, if you're playing online against people, you can play against PS3 or Vita players, no matter what you're on. You can cross your save, so if you are playing at home and you save and you want to go play it on your Vita, you can pick up where you left off. And last but not least, if you buy it, you get it on both automatically as part of the new cross-buy. So we're really, really excited about that. So before we get to the demo, I did want to kind of talk about some of those things that you saw. You saw kind of exploring these battlefields and defending a base, and I wanted to give Sean and Chad kind of a chance to set up the demo and set up the game. So if you guys can give me like what's the rundown? What's new about Full Frontal Assault? I know, but maybe they don't.
When we approached this one of the big pieces of inspiration was some of the battlefield levels from past games, and in particular like the Krell Canyon level from Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time, and then a handful of the levels going all the way back to Up Your Arsenal. And these featured kind of these wide open battlefields. You're in the midst of this big conflict. There were a lot of choices that you had to make about how you took out objectives, what you did with weapons. And like really, we were looking back on these things and trying to figure out like was there more there? Could we explore this a little bit more deeply?
Yeah, well said.
All right. Well, you guys want to see the demo? Yeah. All right. So I guess we can switch back to the demo here. I'm gonna let Sean stand up so he can see over here and talk over the demo and kind of give a little context.
So one of the first questions I always ask whenever I'm showing Ratchet is like, how familiar are you guys with Ratchet and Clank? Very? Anybody? Is anybody heard of Ratchet? Okay, cool. So if I use terms like Q-Force or Starship Phoenix, people will understand. Oh my God, thank you so much. It'll make this so much easier. What you're going to see today is a short slice of Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault. Full Frontal Assault's about exploring the battlefield, defending your base, and annihilating your enemies. We're on planet Ibaro. Ibaro is a lush jungle world in the Polaris galaxy. And we're here because a mysterious new villain has hired a mercenary group called the Grungarian Marauders to take over the planetary defense centers. These things are very well hidden and there aren't many of them, but taking them out will leave the galaxy vulnerable to all kinds of attacks. Captain Quark has reunited the band, so to speak. He's reunited the Q-Force, this time with Ratchet, Clank, and Captain Quark, and the three of them have to go out there and confront this new enemy. What you see here is the Q-Force base. Over on the left, you'll see a couple generators there. That's totally my right, like I'm spatial confusion here. These generators are vitally important because they power their base. If they are destroyed, you will lose control of the planet. You'll also see that around the base there are these small pads. These offer you opportunities to place defenses, and you actually purchase them using bolts. This is a turret placement pad. We also offer mine placement pads, which you'll see right there. And then there's a third kind of defense that we'll show you in just a minute here. Full Frontal Assault is a Ratchet game, and that means weapons. So we're going to go and grab a weapon here. And if at any point somebody gets distracted by smashing crates, that's because that's awesome. I do the same thing. It is super fun to do. So over that, we had a Q-Force weapon pod. These have been deployed around the battlefield so you can collect weapons. Right here, we didn't get the most powerful weapon, but at least we have something. So let's take out this Grungarian force field generator there. One of the neat things about the Grungarians in Full Frontal Assault is that they don't just wait around for you to attack them. They're periodically going to mount incursions against your base. That invasion detector up there lets you track incoming enemies. It'll let you know the type, it'll let you know whether they're coming in on the left or the right, and it'll also let you know about how far they are from the base. So we're going to go out here and build a couple of defenses. We already have a few set up. On the left there, it's a pyro turret. These don't have very good range, but they have a lot of stopping power. The combustor turret's kind of the opposite. Lots of stopping, lots of good range, but not a lot of stopping power. Fortunately, the guys that are coming in are pretty weak here. I mean, you can take them out with one hit. Although I'll warn you, they do a lot of damage to generators, so they're kind of like a pawn in chess. If you can get it to the other side of the board, you're going to be in big trouble. So we took out that first wave. That admittedly was very easy. It's not going to be that easy next time. So we're going to go out onto the battlefield and try to find some weapons. You'll see we've brought back the hover boots from a crack in time. We knew that this is something we just had to do because we're building these large open battlefields. I am a huge fan of the hover boots, and I'm proud to say that I think we've made them easier to use than ever before. I honestly wish that I had them in every game that I played. It is totally awesome just to fly around with them. So over here we have a couple of more powerful Grungarians. These guys actually have guns. But fortunately, our demo player back there, like, is totally owning here. Here's another weapon pod. We have to just perform this quick unlock sequence. If we're able to capture the little white pieces there, we get a small bolt bonus. You'll see in there that instead of having one weapon, we had to choose from 3. In Full Frontal Assault, you always are going to be making choices. What weapon do I get? What path do I take? That was a very important thing that we wanted to do in this game. So we chose the cryo shot over here. This thing will freeze enemies in a couple shots and is extremely satisfying. That is, I mean, does it get better than that? I don't think it does. The freeze and the wrench throw. Over here we see another weapon pod. It looks like the Grungarians have built a small defensive perimeter around it. Luckily, cryo shot makes that a lot easier. So we have another choice to make here. And another quick unlock sequence, so you can see if he can. So, okay, so he got the bolt bonus a couple times. And we have 3 in here with the Doppelbanger, the Sonic Eruptor, and the Pyroblaster. I think we're going to go with the Doppelbanger this time. The Doppelbanger, you can throw it out there, it'll act as a turret, and it will also attract enemy fire. So if we toss one out here, a couple of those Grungoids, which are the weakest Grungarians, will go and take it out. And in the process, they will themselves be destroyed. We had another guy that's hiding up there, but Greg can make short work of it. By the way, that's our long-time Ratchet producer back there who's demoing this, Greg Phillips. And he is determined to do this so fast that I can't keep up with them. So if I ever fall behind, that's why. Greg has been producing our games since the 90s, which are just a memory to me. I was in college then. And see, he's going to collect more bolts, which will allow me to catch up, which I appreciate. So we are out there, we're exploring the battlefield, we're trying to find weapons, we're attacking the Grungarians, but we always know in the back of our mind that at any moment they might mount another attack. That's one of the really cool, unique things that we've brought to the Ratchet and Clank formula in Full Frontal Assault. There's some tension between attacking and defending. There's tension in exploration. You always know that there's an attack coming, but you don't totally know when. Now, we just collected a very powerful weapon there from a major node. That one was kind of a gimme. Most of the major nodes are going to be harder to find, and just as a general rule, the more powerful the weapon, the harder it's going to be to find on the battlefield. You'll see that he found sort of a hidden jump pad that took us to a grind tube, and it took us to the inside of this temple. And I will note that like any long abandoned temple ruin, the traps still work perfectly. That's totally true in the Ratchet universe, like it is in real life, right? And then you'll see that we have another weapon pod up here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Where did you get that line from, TJ? It sounds so familiar. And then, so we unlocked that one, and we now have the plasma bomb launcher. So at this point, we have 5 weapons already. That was another thing that was really important in this game. We wanted to actually throw more weapons at people than they knew what to do with.
More enemies are headed to the base.
So we teleported back to the base, and now there's another attack coming in. This one's going to be a little bit tougher. And then there's another kind of thing that we can throw out. This is a barrier. These things are kind of vital in that they will slow down enemies. The enemies are going to have to take out the barrier generator before they come in. That's kind of like one of the fundamental elements to base defense and Full Frontal Assault. So again, we start off with the Grungoids here. So we had enough bolts, which are used to purchase defenses. We had enough bolts to deploy it. We have barriers on both sides now. But there's a new kind of enemy coming in. This guy up here is the Grungarian Demolitionist, and he's kind of special in that he prefers to attack base defenses. He's going to totally eradicate your turrets before he does anything else. And this ends up kind of throwing a wrench in the gears for your strategy. You could build the perfect turrets and be totally on autopilot, or at least think you are, and then this guy's going to come in and he's going to destroy them all. Unfortunately, that's why we give people rocket launchers, and Greg back there is able to take them out pretty easily. So we have another kind of enemy coming in a second. These guys are just like the full frontal assault's equivalent of the cave troll. They're not very smart, but they're really tough, and they're going to come in and bash everything to bits. But now what we have coming in is one of the most powerful guys. That is a Grungarian bomber up there. These guys are loaded with firepower and heavily armored, and because they hover, they're completely immune to mines. This is the kind of enemy that requires player attention. There are a lot of these enemies that you can just build the right set of defenses to take care of, but this guy, you're going to have to confront him directly. Like everything else, rockets work really, really well. They work for me at the DMV. They work all over the place. I'm sorry, the FBI is going to be waiting outside after this is done. I can't totally see if there are one or two in there now. There are two. Okay, so that's another thing. When these guys come in at the same time, it is important to make sure that you remember the other one, because one of them will totally wail on your generators while you're caught taking out another one of them. But see, Greg's making pretty short work of these guys. He is almost out of ammo, and if he dies, we'll all laugh at him. This is like his worst nightmare. We're going to stand up and point. This is like just the motivation he needed. Look at this. Right, just one more. The combustor, first weapon. It's not the most powerful, but it's totally going to take this guy out. All right, cool. So we fended off the Grungarian invasion. Well done, Greg. And that marks the end of our demo. Full Frontal Assault's coming to PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita, and we also have right now a private beta going on because we have a competitive mode that builds on all the mechanics that you see here. I don't know how many of you guys played the competitive modes in Up Your Arsenal and Deadlocked, but it's the first time we brought them back on the PlayStation 3. I know I'm a huge fan of it, and I look forward to seeing all of you guys check out this beta. Thank you. James Stevenson.
Thanks, Sean. So I've got a minute or two before I have to move on to some anniversary surprises, but I did want to talk about competitive, and the reason he said all you guys are going to check out the beta is because you all are. On your way out, they will be handing you beta codes that will... The beta runs for another week or so, so when you get home you can download it on the PlayStation Store and you should be able to play it through next weekend, and it's really fun and awesome, and we get super hyper competitive. I wanted to note that yesterday, or on Friday, we did some demos to some press, and Machinima.com gave Full Frontal Assault a Best of PAX award. I'm really excited about. Now, I feel like a part of this might have to do with the fact that Greg was playing against Chad in the competitive demo we gave, and Greg was kicking Chad's ass, and myself too. I played against him once and lost badly all day. And then in the final game, Chad got the upper hand early, and it drew into a stalemate, and what should have been a 15-minute demo turned into an over an hour demo. Now, the journalist left after a while, very politely excused himself, but the game went on in my hotel room, and
Chad won.
Chad did win,
yeah.
So he did beat Greg at the end. So make sure you grab a beta card on your way out. We have something else back there for you too, which, is anyone wearing it? Are you wearing it underneath? Oh, unbutton for me, Algire.
Yeah, come on. This is the surprise he talked about.
Strip show.
So there's a Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault t-shirt. There are, that is one of the league icons, and as you move up, there's a whole true skill ranking system, so as you, or like true skill, I guess is the best way to put it, or ELO chess, one of those things. So as you play, you can work your way up and become the top player in the world, and that is one of the league's icons that you can be involved in. But for the next item that we want to talk about, we do have a couple more things for the 10th anniversary this year that you guys might be super interested in. And I want to introduce John Gibson and bring him up here. John Gibson is a founder and partner in I Am 8-Bit and a good friend of mine. They do some awesome stuff like video game art shows, the Dishonored Party, if you got a chance to go check that out this weekend. They also have helped me with our community day, and they also helped us print the t-shirts that are in the back. So welcome, John Gibson.
Hello.
So this project that we're announcing here today is kind of a personal one for me because I am super into limited edition screen prints. And I don't know if you've ever followed Mondo or anything like that, but we decided, I talked to John and worked with Sony, and we decided we wanted to do something similar for Ratchet. And John's here to share the first details about this program.
So we can't tell you too much about it, but we are going to be doing limited edition prints, much like Mondo and much like we've done with I Am 8-Bit shows in the past. 300 only editions every month, September, October, November, December, all interpreted by pretty amazing artists that shall remain nameless for the time being, but I know James, as we were sending emails back and forth, got pretty jazzed and excited.
I am geeked out, because these are going to be awesome. They're all going to be hand-printed, hand-done. They're only going to be 300 of each. When they're gone, they're gone. So if you are into them, if you're into the art, you will want to be like madly refreshing I Am 8-Bit's website.
And you so beautifully pointed out that tactile things don't exist anymore. Everything was all digital, so even those paper holes were such a big deal back in the early days of Ratchet. So yeah, the hand-touch quality is really important to us. So yeah, everything's going to be produced by a human being, and which doesn't happen very often anymore with products. It's very machine-driven, and that's how Ratchet started. It was very personal to everyone on the team. So. All these artists are also very, very big fans of Ratchet and Clank. Not only are they good, but we sought out guys who actually cared about the franchise. So they're going to have a lot of freedom to explore, and it's going to be different styles and things you haven't seen in the past. But I think you guys will be happy. So later in September, we'll announce the first one and show you the image.
Stay tuned for more on that. You can always follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and I think you can also follow I Am 8-Bit on Twitter. I think it's I Am 8-Bit Show on Twitter.
I Am 8-Bit Show on Twitter, and then I Am 8-Bit Productions on Facebook.
Yeah, we're really, really excited. If you for some reason missed the drop, we don't know how crazy these will sell out. We're hoping they're going to sell out like that. But if you for some reason missed it, we'll also have a few copies that Insomniac will be giving away of each one as well. So I'm really, really stoked. Like, the artists are awesome, and there's going to be a lot more on this program coming soon, but it's really cool.
Yeah, you guys will be very, very happy, I think.
So thanks, John, for coming up, and stay up with us for the rest here. One more thing that we've been getting this question a lot, and Japan also sort of kind of posed me on it because it was in the back of one of their trailers, and I had to fiercely deny it for 3 months, even though people would send me a link to this trailer. But I mean, hopefully you've all already bought this, the Ratchet HD collection. But what you may notice that your collection is missing is this game. And I'm super excited to announce that we will be releasing Ratchet Deadlocked in HD later this year on PlayStation 3 with online multiplayer, back and restored, just as you want it. It will be available on the PlayStation Store for download only, and we'll have more details soon, but I am extremely, extremely excited for this. So as I look at my notes, I think that's about it. There's a t-shirt and codes in the back for you on your way.